Welcome back, everyone. We are here for the Q&A. So go ahead with Pamela, who just gave a great message about joy and hope. So if you guys want to go ahead and put your questions in the chat, we will get to them as immediately. So we'll get to as many as we can. Go ahead and put your questions in the chat.
Technical things are always fun, aren't they?
Yeah, we're almost there. It's amazing how this conference has gone, and I'm so glad that all of you were able to make it.
And I think, since we have just a moment, on behalf of everyone that had an opportunity to participate, either as a presenter or as a listener, we want to just thank you, Sarah. You've just done something remarkable, and we really are grateful for your time. This took an enormous amount of time and a lot of learning on your part, all of us. So thank you so much, Sarah, for Diamonds 2019.
Thank you for helping and for all of your. You guys don't know this, but Pamela gave me so much wise advice and encouragement before the conference when I really needed it. So yeah, I definitely didn't do this on my own. I told Vinitha, whose session was earlier today, that this conference was prayed into existence, and by not just me, but a whole bunch of people. So I'm so glad that this is able to come together. It's amazing that it was able to come together in such a short time. So yeah, go ahead and put your questions in the chat. We're ready. Pamela is ready to answer them. So any questions you have for Pamela? It can be about the session that she just did, or the session that she did yesterday, or any questions that you would like to ask her. She's a pretty wise woman.
Well, thank you. I'm not sure that I guess the great news is there's scripture that talks about having gray hair and wisdom. So I have some of both, I guess.
Well, I guess I have a question. What has been, I know that for myself, I learned so much through this conference. Has there been anything specifically that you were able to learn as you were preparing your sessions or anything?
Well, I learned that we can try really hard to do something, but until God breathes it into existence, it just isn't going to happen. And so, as I mentioned in the talk earlier, that I really did study. I really did. I knew that this was the direction you wanted me to talk on Psalm 23. But I couldn't see what to do with it because it wasn't time. When the time is right, and things happen. And so I think that speaks to this conference as well, Sarah, that maybe it wasn't something that had years of planning and a lot of expertise. Well, we had the expertise of God. And when we're intended to do something, he does the equipping. He doesn't call the qualified. He calls the willing, and then he qualifies us. And so that's really been another. Well, I knew that. I always have to be reminded that that's the case.
Oh, wow. Yeah, very true. Very true. Bethany says, what are some of your favorite hymns to listen to on bad days?
Well, so this is a terrible thing, but I don't remember titles or names. I just know that there are songs that I like, and so I just turn on the radio to Christian music and sort of whatever's on. My husband and I have this ongoing thing where he say, "Who sings that?" And I'm like, to date, I really have never gotten it right. I just it doesn't click in my mind, titles and songs particularly. But I'm like, oh, I know that one. Or I sing along with it. So you put me in a spot where I honestly can't. All of our years of marriage, I have never gotten it right. And as a funny aside, that my 5-year-old years and years ago, my husband asked me, it was on the radio, who was singing, and I'm like, who is that? I'm like, I don't know. And she's 5. She goes, Mom, it's the Beatles. So I mean, a very familiar, like that most generations, and I have no idea. So that tells you how limited my, I'm not going to be much help there.
Well, I mean, Christian radio is good advice. Haley says, Pamela, I'm not sure if you covered this as I wasn't here yesterday and was a little in and out, but she was wondering if you could talk more about your ministry a little bit.
Sure. That my favorite thing to talk about. I'm not sure what aspect of that, but Chronic Joy is a global resource ministry, and what that means in more practical terms is first there's a Bible study series that I mentioned today that just sort of helps people get started into community, and that's really one of the first things right after we started a website that my ministry partner began writing, so that we had tools because we just found there's just such a lack of tools and resources and just anything to sort of help our faith journey through chronic illness. There's more than there was 3 years ago, but there's still such a need. And so one of the other things that began because of the website is we realized that if many of us are good at Google, so we'll look up our illness or we'll look up details about how we might find a doctor, but where do you go to look for faith-based educational resources, non-medical? There was really nowhere. And so our website began this evolution of adding resources and sort of putting them in camps, and we now call them communities. So there's a community for chronic illness where we list tools, resources, books, blogs, all kinds of things. There's one for caregivers, one for marriage, one for parenting, one for leaders. And I'm missing one all of a sudden, a little brain fog on my part. But there's 6 communities that we strive to serve. Oh, mental illness. I apologize. And so there are books, blogs, resources that when you come and kind of click on, you can find something that encourages you, and we continue to add to those. The other thing we felt like that was really essential as part of our hope journey is that each and every day on social media, no matter which platform you like to use, we put out a word of encouragement because we feel like that's what we need to see in our inboxes. That's what we need to see message. That's what needs to pop up is we need to see not only just encouragement, but we need to also be able to grieve together. We need to talk about the hard things. So we have this beautiful image with thought-provoking scripture, could be anything, but it just gets us to thinking and to acknowledging that we are not alone in this journey. And so Chronic Joy also then has really 3 pillars that we follow. We want to raise awareness, and I think that's a standard thing across all illnesses, but we want to raise awareness broadly that chronic illness affects nearly 1 in 2 people. That's a huge amount of people, and yet we don't have many resources at our fingertips. We don't seem as a culture to understand that when we sit in the church and we draw a line down the center, that half of the people have chronic illness. Only that's not actually right, because half of that half, part of them didn't come to church today. Part can't come anymore because there's too many hurdles. And so that's one part. Then we have people who have mental illness, 1 in 5 people. Again, that's a huge number. And then we have the caregivers. 65 million people provide care for someone with chronic illness. So it's so important that we raise awareness that we're not a niche. By 2030, one of the studies I read suggests that chronic illness will exceed more than 50% of the population. So those are really important things. And so that's one pillar. The second pillar is community. And I talked about that, the different ways that we encourage that. And then, of course, education. We want to provide faith-based educational resources so that you'll find blog posts. No matter what you're looking for, there's old ones, there's new ones. We're always trying to connect with new people, and they're mostly guest blogs because we want people to have a place, a resource hub, if you will, to come and find something that encourages you today. So you got a long answer there, Bethany.
Oh, it's all good though. And I would definitely recommend checking out that Chronic Joy. Bethany posted the link in the chat if any of you missed it. Pamela, Julie has a question. She says, love Psalm 23 and seeing it through fresh and wise eyes. So good. I want to be a part of church again, but can't figure out how to make that happen without driving, and being in a wheelchair and stuff. do you have any tips?
Well, this is part of our heart and part of, what you sort of figured out in this time of creating a conference is that really, I think virtual groups can begin. I think that if there's one person or two people that maybe you sort of, maybe you've met virtually through another support group, or maybe you know somebody else that you'd love to do a small group can be you and one other person. And that's why we provide that first book in the Thrive series, beginning our brain fog, sorry, Discovering Hope, beginning the journey toward hope as a free resource, because we want people to be able to start a small group and to connect with others. And so we think that one of the things that will happen as we understand technology better is that we will be able to reach out and do it through a medium like this, where we maybe meet every other week, through like Google Hangouts today or Skype or something like that. I know that there's one small group that's trying that online right now. And so I think we'll start to see more of those. And that has been our prayer. So join us in prayer that those begin.
Definitely, yeah. And if you guys look on the conference page, you'll see a surprise that when I realized how important this was, and how I wanted us to still all be able to connect, even though the conference is ending in just an hour or two. So I created a community just for the conference. It probably won't be permanent, but there you can still talk to the people here, and everything. So there's a link Bethany just put in the chat. But yeah,
That's a great thing. So maybe you'll be able to connect with somebody else that from the conference who's interested in just maybe being in part of a small group.
exactly, yeah, and even people you've already met. So definitely go over there. Sadly, we've run out of time for this Q&A, but I'm sure that Pamela would be happy to talk further if you go look through the Chronic Joy social media and website and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming, Pamela, and for giving us such great messages. So if everyone wants to go and click the link in the description below, and you can go and watch the very long-awaited Joni Eareckson Chada's session and enjoy that. And I will see you for the last session after that. Bye.